Hello, I'm Jeremy, and welcome to another episode of Jeremy U's RevUs, where mistreated movies get a second chance. Today, we're talking about one of the greatest movies ever made, Tom Green's surreal magnum opus, Freddy Got Fingered. If Andy Kaufman started the surreal comedy movement, Tom Green perfected it. The man is a surreal comedic genius. His sense of humor is so warped, bizarre, and demented that he excels at doing the weirdest and funniest things. And while some people see him as an attention-hungry hack, a lot of people, like me, see Tom Green as a great comedian. He had a hit show on MTV, which I recommend checking out, especially if you're into the Eric Andre show. He was in Road Trip, which, while not a big hit with critics, a lot of people loved, and he was married to E.T. star Drew Barrymore. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about why I think Freddy Got Fingered is one of the greatest movies ever made. So let's not waste any time. This is Freddy Got Fingered.
The Tom Green Show. It's not the Green Tom Show. This is my favorite show because it's my show. If this was your show.
Tom Green plays Gordon Brody, an insanely bizarre man who dreams of being an animator. However, his father, Jim Brody, played by Rip Torn, thinks he's wasting his time with what he considers doodles. One day, Jim and his wife Julie, played by Julie Haggerty, give Gord a car so he can go get a job at a cheese factory. But he soon quits and heads back home, and a bunch of shenanigans ensue. Freddy Got Fingered is pure absurdist genius. Every single aspect of this movie is a middle finger to mainstream filmmaking, good taste, and everything a movie is supposed to be. For example, the title. Movie titles usually pertain to something important in the plot, like a character's name, the name of a place where the action takes place, or an event happening. But Freddy Got Fingered subverts that by naming its film after the least important plot point. See, in one part of the movie, Gord lies about Jim fingering his little brother Freddy, and this causes Freddy to be shipped to a home for sexually M-worded children. And this is the last we see of Freddy. We cut to him once at the end where he's still at the home now with a beard, and that's it. This subplot could have been cut from the film and nothing would change. And it's the title of the movie. But that's only just the beginning. Freddy Got Fingered is a staircase of insanity. It just gets crazier and crazier as the film goes on. When something crazy happens, you think, oh, they aren't gonna top that. But then a few minutes later, they somehow manage to top it. There is so much insanity in this film that it makes David Lynch movies look normal. Speaking of which, let's get to the two most infamous scenes of the movie. The pregnancy scene and the scene where Gord grabs a horse's dick. Both of these scenes are hilarious. Now, I get why people like Nostalgia Critic and Phantom Strider hate these scenes, and in any other movie, both of these scenes would be incredibly disturbing. But similar to the last film I reviewed, Smokey and the Bandit Part 3, Freddy Got Fingered makes these scenes work through absurdity. When I'm watching them, I don't focus on how disturbing and gross they are, but rather how absurd and cartoonish they are, making them funny. There were really only two scenes where I was actually grossed out. The first was the scene where Darren cracks his knee, and the second is one of the scenes where Andy gets injured. This is because, unlike most of the scenes in this movie, those two scenes feel more realistic, so there's no absurdism to distract from how disgusting it is. But easily my favorite of the absurdist scenes is the scene where Gordon cuts open a dead deer. See, an animator tells Gord to get inside the animals, meaning his cartoon animals. But Gord takes this literally as he soon finds a dead deer on the side of a road, skins it, and wears it like a coat. Now, in my opinion, seeing Gord run around wearing a dead deer is hilarious on its own, but the scene makes it even funnier by playing this over it.
I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves.
So we're seeing a crazy person skin a dead animal and wear it on his back while an innocent, sweet song plays in the background. That is comedic contrasting at its finest. And now let's talk about the characters. First, there's the main man himself, Gord Brody. Gord is easily the best character in this movie. He's basically a more unhinged version of Tom Green. And that is why Gord is awesome. If you're unfamiliar with Tom Green's comedic style, you'll probably be annoyed with or hate Gord. But as a massive Tom Green fan, Gord is freaking hilarious. Just about everything he does and says is incredibly funny and massively quotable. While there are other things that make FGF such a great movie, Gord is really the main thing that makes it so great. Most of the comedy in the film comes from how absurd and bizarre Gord acts. And while there are many weird and eccentric characters in fiction like Captain Manzini, Raoul Duke, and Mr. Elevenses and Mr. Faraway, Gord is different from them in one important way: subversion. Gord is one of those rare characters that's both likable and unlikable at the same time. Throughout the movie, Gord does many unlikable things, from skinning dead animals to making temper tantrums to distracting people to the pregnancy scene, and let's not forget putting his brother into a home for abused children. But despite that, I don't hate Gord. This is because the movie knows when Gord is in the wrong. Unlike a lot of bad comedy movies where the protagonist is treated as the hero even if he's a complete jagoff, Freddy Got Fingered knows that Gord is not always a good character and knows when to stick by him and knows when to frame him as the idiotic lunatic he is. This is what makes Gord such a clever character. The fact that a man who skins dead animals, sends his brother to a home for sexually M-worded children, based on a lie he told for no reason, is more likable than characters like Jack Saddlestein and Chuck Levine. And on top of that, Gord is still a sympathetic character. Similar to Edison from Chairman of the Board, Gord's dream of becoming an animator makes him a sympathetic and relatable character. Even though most people aren't as bizarre as Gord, we all have our dreams and passions, and as such, the audience can relate to Gord having those dreams and being told he's an idiot for having those dreams. And before we move on, let's talk about Tom Green's acting in the movie. He is really good. A lot of it is probably because it's his movie that he designed himself, but Tom Green is absolutely perfect in the role of Gord. Green's manic energy, penchant for surrealism, and stoner look makes him perfectly ideal to play the character, and he just disappears in the role so well. I get why Gord would get on people's nerves, but I think he's freaking hilarious, and easily one of my favorite movie characters. Moving on to Gord's dad, Jim. Jim is one of the worst fathers in fiction ever. But that's what makes him such a great character. Jim is an unapologetically cruel scumbag of a father, and his rocky relationship with Gord is really interesting and helps drive the film. Also, Rip Torn freaking kills it as Jim. Rip is a very gruff, tough actor, so he easily blends into the role of the gruff and tough Jim, and his over-the-top portrayal helps make the character even funnier. Jim is the definition of an enjoyable jagoff, a character we're supposed to hate but still enjoy nonetheless. Next is Gord's girlfriend, Betty. Betty is an absolutely genius character. When you first see Betty take an interest in Gord, you wonder, why would any girl be interested in such a nutball? But then later it's revealed that Betty is somehow more crazy than Gord is. She's wheelchair bound and has a fetish for having her legs hit with a bamboo stick, which even Gord is confused by. But Betty is more than just some crazy person. Like Gord, she has her own hopes and dreams. But instead of becoming an animator, she wants to create a rocket-powered wheelchair. And like with Gord's animator dream, Betty's dream helps make her a likable and sympathetic character despite how cuckoo for Cocoa Puff she is. Also, Gord and Betty have great chemistry. Their craziness perfectly contrasts with each other, and they make an absolutely great couple. Moving on to Gord's friend Darren. Darren is a decent character. While he's not especially memorable, he's likable, has good chemistry with Gord, and Harlan Williams is good in the role. Finally, there's Andy. See, one of the running gags in the film is that a little boy named Andy constantly gets injured from Gord's escapades. I have mixed feelings on this running gag. On the one hand, Andy doesn't deserve the torment he gets, as he is a very nice boy, and it results in one of the only truly disgusting moments of the film. But on the other hand, that's kind of the point. See, the humor in this running gag comes not from the fact that mercilessly beating a nice little boy is funny, rather, the humor comes from the fact that the film thinks that beating up Andy is funny. Going back to bad Happy Madison-esque comedies, a lot of them have a punching bag, an obligatory guy that the movie piles on and covers with misfortune, a Mr. Unlucky, if you will. And FGF pokes fun at this idea by not only having the film's Mr. Unlucky be an incredibly nice, polite little boy, but also by brutally assaulting him in ways that are both painful and really not funny. This pokes fun at and highlights how awful these mean-spirited jabs can be in certain Happy Madison-esque comedies, culminating in the gloriously morbid ending, which I will not spoil. Finally, let's talk about FGF's reception. When Freddy Got Fingered came out, people hated it. It bombed big time, got scathing reviews from multiple critics, and currently holds a 10% on Rotten Tomatoes. But that's pretty much the point. Roger Ebert said in his review of Freddy Got Fingered, "The day may come when Freddy Got Fingered is seen as a milestone of neo-surrealism." And he was right. While there are still people that hate Freddy Got Fingered, a lot of people, like me, see FGF as a film that was ahead of its time. A masterpiece of bizarre and absurd offensive surrealism. A movie that pushes the mold while still giving you a good time. And Tom Green, strolling out on the red carpet to accept the Razzie awarded to him for his magnum opus, is the single greatest moment in Razzie history, with Halle Berry's speech for Catwoman at a close second. Freddy Got Fingered is a blatant screw you to critics, a visual representation of everything this channel stands for. Tom Green made a film that was meant to be hated and meant to be mocked, and most of the viewing public fell for it hook, line, and sinker. In conclusion, Freddy Got Fingered is an absolute masterpiece. On its own, it's a fun, silly, crazy comedy with great characters and bonkers dialogue. But it's also a landmark piece in so bad it's good movie making. Freddy Got Fingered is a movie that straight up rejects the preferred movie making formula and goes all out with insanity, violence, gore, and even more insanity. And it is glorious. It's a brilliantly funny, wacky comedy with great characters, fantastic dialogue, and a never-ending stream of insane fun. If you hate this movie, I completely understand. But in my opinion, Freddy Got Fingered isn't just a good movie. It's one of the greatest movies ever made. That's all for now. Stay tuned for more episodes of Jeremy U's Reviews coming soon. See ya!